Formal incident briefings. Verified video proof. Direct accountability. Welcome to Bodycam Incident Reports.
Step away from the fence. Drop whatever's in your hand.
My hands are empty. Those are barbecue tongs. You're pointing a gun at a homeowner in his own yard.
You're being detained. Open the gate now.
For what crime? I'm cooking dinner. You have no warrant and no cause.
Last warning.
Officer, you are about to make the biggest mistake of your life.
Officer Kyle Braden was vibrating with adrenaline. His hand was white-knuckled around the grip of his service weapon, unholstered and held at the low-ready position aimed through the gaps of a white picket fence. To him, the man on the other side looked like a threat. He saw a large black male, broad-shouldered, standing near fire and smoke holding a metal object. He saw defiance. He saw a suspect who refused to submit to lawful commands. But what Officer Braden didn't see what he couldn't see because he was blinded by his own bias and a rush of unearned authority was that the man he was aiming at was Master Sergeant Marcus Thorne, United States Marine Corps, retired. Braden had absolutely no idea that the suspect had spent 22 years serving his country, including 2 combat tours in Fallujah and Helmand Province. He didn't know that Marcus held a Silver Star for pulling 3 wounded men out of a burning Humvee while under heavy insurgent fire. He didn't know that the house behind Marcus, the immaculate 2-story colonial with the freshly painted trim, was fully paid off and had been the Thorne family home for 15 years. Officer Braden, 29 years old and only 3 years on the force, saw a threat. Marcus Thorne, 54 years old and steady as a rock, saw a boy with a badge who was about to make a life-altering mistake. "Officer," Marcus said, his voice dropping into that command register that had once directed platoons into battle. "My hands are empty. The tongs are on the table. You are pointing a loaded firearm at a private citizen in his own backyard. You are escalating a non-existent situation. Holster your weapon." "You don't tell me what to do," Braden shouted, sweat beading on his forehead despite the mild afternoon breeze. "Open this gate. You're detained." "For what?" Marcus stood his ground, feet planted shoulder-width apart, hands clearly visible at chest height, palms open. "What articulable reasonable suspicion do you have that a crime has been, is being, or is about to be committed? I am cooking dinner." "We had a report. Suspicious activity. Now open the gate, or I will kick it in." "If you kick in that gate without a warrant or exigent circumstances," Marcus said, his eyes locking onto Braden's, "you will be violating the 4th Amendment of the Constitution I swore an oath to defend. And son, I defended it against men a lot scarier than you. Before we find out exactly how this tense standoff explodes, I need you to take a second. Look at where you are right now. You're watching this on your phone or your computer safe. Imagine if cooking dinner in your own backyard could get a gun pointed at your face. If you believe that our veterans deserve respect and that police need to be held accountable when they cross the line, hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me. Do you think a citizen has the right to refuse a warrantless entry, yes or no? This story is about to take a turn that will leave you absolutely speechless. This nightmare hadn't started with shouting. It had started with the perfect Saturday afternoon, the kind of day you work 40 years to enjoy. The sky over the quiet suburb of Oak Creek was a piercing, cloudless blue. The magnolias were in bloom, dropping soft white petals onto the manicured lawns that lined winding streets. It was a neighborhood of retirees, doctors, and professionals, a place where people moved to escape the noise of the city. Marcus had spent the morning prepping. He took his barbecue seriously. It was a ritual. He had woken up at 6 o'clock, old habits die-hard gone, for his 5-mile run, and then spent an hour prepping the dry rub for 3 racks of St. Louis-style ribs, brown sugar paprika garlic powder, and a secret kick of cayenne pepper. By 2 o'clock p.m., the smoker was holding a steady 225 degrees, sending thin blue wisps of hickory smoke drifting harmlessly into the summer air. He was listening to a little Al Green sipping a glass of iced tea and watching a cardinal hop along the top of his fence. He was at peace. The wars were far behind him. The noise of combat, the dust, the adrenaline. It was all in the past. Here he was, just Marcus, a father whose daughter was coming over for dinner at 6, a grandfather who had a swing set waiting to be assembled in the garage. Then the patrol car rolled up. It didn't pull into a driveway. It prowled down the street, slowing to a crawl in front of Marcus's house. Marcus noticed it, of course. You don't spend 2 decades in the Corps without developing situational awareness. He saw the cruiser, noted the unit number 402, and went back to basting his ribs. He had nothing to hide. He wasn't speeding, he wasn't jaywalking, and he certainly wasn't disturbing the peace. But the car didn't leave. It stopped. The driver's door opened and Officer Kyle Braden stepped out. He adjusted his duty belt, hitched up his pants, and walked up the driveway with a stride that suggested he was looking for a fight. He didn't knock on the front door. He walked around the side of the house, following the smell of the smoke, heading straight for the backyard gate. Marcus watched him coming. He set his basting brush down. He wiped his hands on a towel. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He just turned to face the gate, standing in the sanctity of his own property. "Can I help you, officer?" Marcus called out before Braden even reached the fence. Braden stopped. He looked surprised to be addressed so directly. He squinted at Marcus, his eyes scanning the yard, the smoker, the patio furniture, and finally resting on Marcus himself. "Do you live here?" Braden asked. No greeting, no good afternoon. Just an accusation wrapped in a question. "I do," Marcus said. "Can I ask why you're walking through my side yard?" "We got a call," Braden said, moving closer to the gate.
"Neighbor reported a suspicious individual lurking behind this residence. Possible break-in in progress. Someone lighting fires."
Marcus actually chuckled. A deep, rumbling sound.
"Lighting fires, I'm barbecuing officer, and lurking, I've lived here since 2008. The only thing suspicious is why you're bypassing my front door to interrogate me over my back fence."
"Let me see some ID," Braden said. His hand drifted to his belt. He didn't like the chuckle. He didn't like the confidence. In Braden's mind, a suspect should be nervous. A suspect should be apologetic. When they weren't, it meant they were hiding something, or they were dangerous. "My wallet is inside on the kitchen counter," Marcus said calmly. "But I can tell you my name is Marcus Thorne. I own this property. Now, if you don't have a warrant, I'm going to ask you to return to your vehicle. The ribs need tending." "I'm not going anywhere until I identify you." Braden snapped, his face flushing. "For all I know, you broke in here and you're burning evidence." "Burning evidence?" Marcus gestured to the smoker. "Smell that. That's hickory and paprika. If I were burning evidence, I'd use a burn barrel, not a $1,000 smoker. You're reaching, son, and you're trespassing." "Step out of the yard," Braden commanded. "Come out here where I can see you better." "I am perfectly visible right here," Marcus replied. "I am on my private property. I am not coming out to the street to be detained for a crime that doesn't exist. This conversation is over." That was the moment the switch flipped. Officer Braden wasn't used to being told no. He wasn't used to men like Marcus, men who knew their rights and refused to be bullied. Braden interpreted the refusal as a physical threat. He interpreted the confidence as aggression. "Last warning," Braden shouted, his voice cracking slightly. "Step out now." "No," Marcus said simply. He turned his back on the officer to check the temperature gauge on the smoker. "Don't you turn your back on me," Braden screamed. "He's reaching. Stop reaching." And that was when the gun came out. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the gentle hiss of the gas burner and the distant hum of a lawnmower. The neighborhood was watching now. Curtains twitched. A few doors down, a garage door opened. "You are making a mistake," Marcus said, not turning around yet keeping his movements glacial. "You are about to cross a line you can't uncross. Turn around. Hands on your head. Interlace your fingers." Braden was shouting so loud his voice echoed off the siding of the house. Marcus turned slowly. He raised his hands. He looked at the young officer, seeing the fear behind the aggression. "I am complying," Marcus said, his voice steady, broadcasting for anyone listening. "I am unarmed. I am on my property. I am not a threat. Get on the ground. I have bad knees from jumping out of helicopters for 20 years, Marcus said. "I am not getting on the ground. I will stand here. I will let you handcuff me if you feel that's necessary for your safety, but I am not getting in the dirt." From the porch of the house next door, a screen door slammed open. Mrs. Gable, a 62-year-old retired school teacher with a reputation for knowing everyone's business, stepped out. She was holding her smartphone, and the camera lens was pointed directly at Officer Braden. "Officer!" she yelled, her voice shrill but clear. "What in God's name are you doing? That is Marcus Thorne. He's been my neighbor for 15 years. Braden glanced at her, distracted for a split second. "Ma'am, get back inside. This is an active police situation." "Active police situation," Mrs. Gable scoffed. "He's cooking ribs. I can smell them from my living room. You put that gun away before you hurt someone." "He's refusing to identify. He's resisting," Braden yelled back, desperate to control the narrative. "He's refusing to be harassed," Mrs. Gable shouted. "I'm recording this. Every second of it. You better think really hard about what you do next, young man." Braden felt the walls closing in. He had a suspect who wouldn't bow down and a witness who was live-streaming his loss of control. He had two choices: de-escalate, apologize, and walk away, or double down. His ego made the choice for him. He couldn't leave now. If he left, he looked weak. If he left, he admitted he was wrong. "I have probable cause," Braden yelled, more to himself than anyone else. "Exigent circumstances, potential fire hazard. I'm entering the property." "There is no fire hazard," Marcus said calmly. "Don't do it." Braden holstered his weapon but pulled his taser. He kicked the latch on the white picket gate. The wood splintered. The gate swung open. He stormed into the backyard, boots stomping on the pristine grass Marcus spent every Sunday mowing. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't pull away. He stood tall, a statue of dignity amidst the chaos. He slowly rotated, placing his hands behind his back. "I am not resisting," Marcus said clearly for Mrs. Gable's camera. "I am submitting to an unlawful arrest under duress." Braden didn't care about the words. He grabbed Marcus's wrists, wrenching them upward with unnecessary force. The handcuffs clicked tight, too tight, metal biting into skin. "You're hurting him," Mrs. Gable screamed from her porch. "He's not even fighting you. Stop resisting." Braden panted, pushing Marcus forward, shoving his chest against the hot metal of the smoker's side table. "Careful," Marcus said, wincing as the heat radiated near his face. "The grill is hot. You're going to burn us both." "Shut up." Braden shoved him again, spinning him around to face the house. He patted Marcus down aggressively, hands slapping against pockets, searching for weapons that didn't exist. He found a pocket knife, a small Swiss Army knife, in Marcus's pocket. "Weapon," Braden announced triumphantly, holding up the 2-inch blade. "It's a pocket knife, son," Marcus said, his voice tired now. "I use it to open packages. You found it in the pocket of a 54-year-old man in his own backyard. Congratulations. You're a hero." Braden shoved the knife into his own pocket. "You're under arrest for disorderly conduct, failure to obey a lawful order, and resisting arrest." "And the suspicious activity?" Marcus asked. "The lurking?" "We'll sort that out at the station," Braden grunted. He grabbed Marcus by the bicep and began marching him toward the gate. "My ribs," Marcus said, looking back at the smoker. "Turn the gas off. If you leave it running, they'll burn. Or worse." "Not my problem," Braden sneered. "It is your problem," Marcus said.
Because if my house catches fire while I'm in your custody, that's liability. And I guarantee you the lawsuit I'm about to file is already getting expensive. Do you really want to add arson by negligence to the list? Braden paused. He looked at the smoker. He looked at Marcus. He hated that the man was right. With a huff of petulance, Braden reached out and twisted the knob to the off position. "Move," Braden said, shoving Marcus through the broken gate. They walked down the driveway. The entire street was watching now. Neighbors stood on their lawns, arms crossed, faces grim. They weren't looking at Marcus with suspicion. They were looking at Braden with disgust. Marcus held his head high. He didn't look at his feet. He looked his neighbors in the eye, nodding slightly to Mr. Henderson across the street, who looked like he was about to call the mayor. Braden opened the back door of the cruiser. "Watch your head," he said sarcastically, pushing Marcus down into the hard plastic seat. Marcus maneuvered his large frame into the cramped space, the handcuffs dug into his lumbar spine. The door slammed shut, sealing him in the stale hot air of the patrol car. He closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself. He took a deep breath. Semper Fi, he thought. Always faithful. He had stayed faithful to his country. He just wished his country would stay faithful to him. Braden got into the front seat. He didn't look back at his prisoner. He started the engine, threw it into drive, and peeled away from the curb tires, screeching slightly, a final act of immature aggression. The ride to the precinct was a silent, simmering 11 minutes. Marcus sat in the back, his eyes open now, recording everything. He memorized the back of Braden's head. The way he nervously tapped the steering wheel. The way he kept checking the rear-view mirror, looking for fear in Marcus's eyes and finding only resolve. Marcus wasn't afraid. He was calculating. He was already drafting the opening arguments of the civil rights violation complaint in his head. He knew the law. He had studied criminal justice after the Corps. He knew 18 U.S. Code Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. He knew it better than the man driving the car. Braden radioed ahead. 402 inbound. One male in custody, code 4. Copy 402. Charges, the dispatcher asked. Disorderly resisting obstruction, Braden said. Marcus shook his head slightly in the back seat. He's digging the hole deeper, Marcus thought. He thinks the charge sheet is his shield. He doesn't know it's his confession. They arrived at the 12th precinct. Braden pulled into the sally port, the garage door rumbling shut behind them. He hauled Marcus out of the car. The intake area was bright, smelling of industrial cleaner and floor wax. Braden marched Marcus toward the booking desk, his grip on Marcus's arm still unnecessarily tight. Sitting behind the high desk was Sergeant Pop Miller. Pop was 68 years old, a fixture of the department. He had white hair, a face like worn leather, and eyes that had seen every lie ever told. He was wearing a lapel pin on his uniform, a small gold eagle, a Vietnam veteran. Pop was looking down at paperwork when the doors buzzed open. "What you got, Braden?" he asked without looking up. "Another jaywalker. Belligerent male," Braden said, puffing out his chest. "Refused to ID, resisted arrest. Suspect was lurking in a backyard in Oak Creek." Pop looked up. He adjusted his glasses. His eyes went from Braden to the man in handcuffs. He squinted. Then his eyes went wide. The color drained from his face. Pop Miller stood up slowly. "Braden," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Why is Marcus Thorne in handcuffs?" Braden blinked. "You know this guy. Know him." Pop came around the desk. He didn't look at Braden. He looked at Marcus. "Marcus, what the hell is this?" "Afternoon, Pop," Marcus said politely. "I was barbecuing. This officer seemed to take issue with my ribs." Pop turned to Braden. The vein in Pop's neck was throbbing. "You arrested Marcus Thorne, the commander of the local VFW, the man who organizes the Toys for Tots drive every Christmas.
You arrested him in Oak Creek at his own house. He refused to ID. Braden stammered, the confidence evaporating like mist. There was a report of a suspicious person. Suspicious person? Pop roared. The sound echoed through the booking area. Other officers stopped what they were doing and looked over. He's lived there for 15 years. He's a decorated Marine Master Sergeant. He's got a silver star, you idiot. Braden took a step back. I didn't know. He didn't say. He shouldn't have to say, Pop snapped. He pulled a key ring from his belt and walked straight to Marcus. Turn around, Marcus. Sarge, you can't just unarrest him, Braden protested weakly. The paperwork. Screw the paperwork, Pop shouted. He unlocked the cuffs. Marcus rubbed his wrists. There were deep red indentations where the metal had bitten in. Thank you, Pop, Marcus said. Shoulders were getting a little stiff. Pop looked at the marks on Marcus's wrists. He looked furious. Go sit in the captain's office, Marcus. I'll get you some water. Don't say another word. Pop turned to Braden. His voice dropped to a whisper that was scarier than the shouting. You, stay right there. Do not move. Do not speak. If you even twitch, I will throw you in a cell myself. Pop picked up the phone on the desk. He dialed a 3-digit extension. Captain Reynolds, you need to come down here, now. No, sir. It's Braden. He just arrested Marcus Thorne. Yes, that Marcus Thorne. Yes, sir. It's bad. It's really bad. Captain Reynolds appeared 2 minutes later. He was a tall man, 50 years old, with the weary look of someone who spent half his life fixing other people's messes. He walked into the booking area, took one look at Marcus, rubbing his wrists, one look at a pale Officer Braden, and closed his eyes for a brief second. Office, Reynolds said. Now, all of us. They filed into the captain's glass-walled office. Reynolds sat behind his desk. Marcus sat in the guest chair. Braden stood because nobody told him to sit. Talk, Reynolds said to Braden. Braden tried to spin it. He talked about the call, the refusal to ID, the aggression, the reaching. But as he spoke, his voice grew smaller. Reynolds wasn't buying it. He pulled up the dispatch log on his computer. The call, Reynolds read, was from a Mrs. Higgins. She's 90 years old and has dementia. She calls 3 times a week reporting shadow people. You know this, Braden. It's in the notes. I didn't check the notes, Braden admitted. And the aggression... Reynolds turned to his computer monitor. Pop, pull the body cam. Now. They watched the footage in silence. They watched Marcus calmly standing in his yard. They watched Braden screaming. They heard the drop the weapon command for the tongs. They heard Marcus citing the Fourth Amendment. They heard Mrs. Gable screaming that he was a neighbor. They saw the tackle. The silence in the room was suffocating. Reynolds stopped the video. He turned to Marcus. Master Sergeant Thorne, he said, using the full rank. I don't even have the words. I am mortified. Apologies are nice, Captain, Marcus said, his voice hard. But they don't fix the fact that I was assaulted and kidnapped from my own home in front of my neighbors. My reputation is damaged. My rights were violated, and my ribs are cold. I understand, Reynolds said. He looked at Braden. The look was pure ice. Badge and gun, on the desk. Captain, Braden whispered. Administrative leave, effective immediately. Pending internal investigation. Put them on the desk and get out of my station. Braden's hands shook as he unclipped his holster. He placed the heavy Glock on the wood, then the badge. He walked out of the office, a civilian stripping the Velcro name tape off his uniform as he went. Marcus, Reynolds said, I'll drive you home personally. We will drop all charges immediately. There will be no record of this. Oh, there will be a record, Captain, Marcus said, standing up. Mrs. Gable recorded it, and I suspect the whole world is going to see it by tomorrow morning." Marcus was right. Mrs. Gable's granddaughter had uploaded the video to TikTok and Twitter with the caption, "Racist cop arrests black veteran barbecuing in his backyard." He served 2 combat tours. By the time Reynolds dropped Marcus off at his house, stopping to apologize to the neighbors who had gathered on the lawn, the video had 50,000 views. By Sunday morning, it had 2 million. By Monday, it was the lead story on CNN. The image of Marcus standing tall and dignified while a screaming officer pointed a gun at him over a picket fence became iconic. It was a Rorschach test for America. Some saw a hero under attack. Others saw a system working exactly as it was designed to control and intimidate. Marcus didn't hide. He hired Alan Dershowitz-level counsel, a civil rights shark named Elena Ross. They filed a federal lawsuit that made the city attorney weep. They didn't just go after Braden, they went after the department. They pulled Braden's file and found the pattern everyone knew was there but ignored. 6 previous complaints, all involving black men over 40, all dismissed as unfounded by a supervisor who had since retired. The city didn't want a trial. They knew a jury would look at Marcus Thorne's Silver Star recipient, pillar of the community grandfather, and give him the keys to the city treasury. They settled in record time, $4 million. But the money wasn't the point. Part of the settlement required the department to implement a new policy, the Thorne Doctrine. It mandated that officers could not enter private property for suspicious person calls without verifying the homeowner's identity through dispatch first unless there was an active violent felony in progress. Braden was fired. The union didn't even fight for him. The video was too damning. He was decertified, meaning he could never be a police officer in the state again. 6 months later, the neighborhood was quiet again. It was another Saturday. The sun was setting, casting long golden shadows across the lawn. The new gate paid for by the city was shut. The smoker was humming. Marcus stood by the grill. He was alone. The settlement money was in the bank, most of it already earmarked for a legal defense fund he'd started for veterans who couldn't afford lawyers. He had won. Justice had been served. But as he flipped the ribs, Marcus felt a heaviness in his chest that hadn't been there before. He looked at the spot where Braden had stood. He realized that the feeling of safety, the feeling that his home was his castle, was gone. It had been taken by a 29-year-old with a badge, and no amount of money could buy it back. He realized that even with the medals, even with the rank, even with the good neighborhood, he was still vulnerable. If it could happen to him, it could happen to anyone. He turned off the gas. He plated the ribs. He sat down at his patio table as the fireflies began to blink in the twilight. He took a bite. They were perfect. Tender, spicy sweet, but they tasted a little like ash. Marcus looked directly at you, the viewer, through the lens of this story. He wants you to ask yourself a hard question. If a man like Marcus Thorne, who gave everything for his country, isn't safe in his own backyard, who is justice real? If it only comes after the camera is rolling, or is it just damage control? Drop a comment below. Tell us what you would have done if you were standing at that grill. And if you believe that freedom means being left alone to cook your dinner in peace, share this story. Let's make sure they never forget the name Marcus Thorne.
This incident file is closed. For more objective footage breakdowns, please like and subscribe. Thank you for supporting Bodycam Incident Reports.